for coming to the Aaron Torres Podcast YouTube page. If you could do me a quick favor, see that little black subscribe button at the bottom of your screen? Go ahead, click that black subscribe button. Really does help our audience grow, really does help our channel grow, really does help and mean more than you could possibly know. So go ahead, hit that little black subscribe button. Also, thank you to our presenting sponsor, Betfred Sportsbook and the Betfred Sportsbook app. Bet 50 on any game, get $250 in free bets. Thank you again to Betfred. Thank you again to you. Now, here is the video that you came here for. At the same time, Kyle Filipowski coming back for another year of college basketball wasn't the only news at Duke on Tuesday. That's because at almost the exact same time that Duke forward Kyle Filipowski, leading scorer and leading rebounder, we just talked about him, announced that he is coming back to college basketball for a sophomore season, Duke's top-rated recruit, Mackenzie Mgbako, I think he might be the best player in high school basketball. We'll discuss that in a minute. Number 7 in the 24/7 Sports rankings. Mackenzie Mgbako been committed to Duke for about a year now. Signed his letter of intent in November. Mackenzie Mgbako decommits. And so what I want to do now, Mackenzie Mgbako, by the way, about a 6'8", 6'9" forward. We're going to discuss him in a minute. But what I want to do now is break down why he decommitted, what it means for Duke, but then also specifically, he's a really good player. Where could this end up? And so listen, let's call a spade a spade. One thing about this show, there's no BS, no nonsense, no tomfoolery on this show, okay? And let's call a spade a spade. I don't think it's a coincidence that Mackenzie Mgbako announced he is going to reopen his recruitment on a day that Kyle Filipowski announced that he was coming back, and on a day that, a couple weeks after Mark Mitchell announced that he's coming back. Mackenzie Mgbako's about 6'8", 6'9", kind of a combo forward, kind of a small ball four-ish type guy, maybe a 3 in a big lineup. But I think he looked at the situation when he committed to Duke, and I'm not blaming Jon Scheyer for this, but when he committed to Duke, the assumption is Mark Mitchell's a one and done, Kyle Filipowski's a one and done, there's going to be plenty of playing time. And so when both those guys come back, Mackenzie Mgbako says, wow, I'm supposed to be a lottery pick in the 2024 draft. I don't got time to sit behind these guys and wait my turn. This ain't 1986 anymore. Okay, I'm going somewhere where I can play. And so what I will say about what I think is a good trend, good players returning to college basketball, it is also a reality that this is going to be a balancing act and a juggling act for coaches like Jon Scheyer, John Calipari, all these guys that recruit elite players. Because on the one hand, you're thrilled to get back a Kyle Filipowski, a Mark Mitchell, a Tyrese Proctor. But on the other hand, you're selling the next recruiting class that, oh, these guys are one and done. There's going to be plenty of playing time for you. And so what ends up happening is, if you're Jon Scheyer, you don't want to push a guy out that wants to be at your school, but you also now are going to run into situations where 5-star freshmen don't want to be a backup, don't want to sit behind veteran guys. And so this is kind of the reality of what's going to happen. Now, is this going to happen all the time? I don't know, because I don't know if we're going to get Kyle Filipowski's and Mark Mitchell's now deciding to come back to college basketball. But this is the new reality. So with it, Mackenzie Mgbako is essentially a free agent. I'll say this, man. Like, we spent a lot of time on this show talking about the portal and this and that and the other thing. I'm just here to tell you, I think Mackenzie Mgbako, outside of maybe Hunter Dickinson, he's probably the best player available right now, this second, end of story. And so I bring it up because we spent so much time talking about the portal. This is the instant impact player that I think everybody wants, because I believe listen, they say, they don't say, they're right. The recruiting experts, the NBA draft guys say the 2024 high school class is not a great class in terms of NBA talent. But I'm here to tell you, I think Mackenzie Mgbako is right up there as the best NBA prospects in this class of 2023. Not saying he's the number one player, whatever. But there's a short conversation for best future NBA players, whether it's DJ Wagner going to Kentucky, Justin Edwards going to Kentucky, Ron Holland going to Texas. Whoever those players are, I think Mackenzie Mgbako might be number one. And so because of it, I'm here to tell you, this recruiting sweepstakes is going to be fascinating going forward. So the question becomes, with him being available, what are the realistic landing spots? And let me start by saying I do think there is one that has jumped to the forefront of pretty much everybody's list. It's Louisville. And I'm not saying I agree with it. I'm not saying it's the move that I would advise Mackenzie Mgbako to make, but it is the move that I think feels probably most likely. For people who don't kind of follow the tea leaves, Mackenzie Mgbako was committed to Duke. One of his key recruiters was Nolan Smith, who left Duke for Louisville last offseason after Coach K's retirement to be on Kenny Payne's staff. So if you follow the tea leaves, there's a natural connection. Nolan Smith is kind of a Northeast guy, grew up in the Philly area, was one of Mackenzie Mgbako's lead recruiters. Now the door's open, and Mackenzie Mgbako can go to Louisville. As I said, I'm not sure if that's the advice that I would give him, because Louisville's in a wild spot for next year. So on the one hand, credit to Kenny Payne. They've done a good job bringing in talent this offseason. Sky Clark transfer from Illinois. Dennis Evans, 5-star from California. Trenton Flowers. I was going to say Trenton Waters, which I think I was thinking of Tremont Waters, but Trenton Flowers, 5-star kid, reclassified. But if Mackenzie Mgbako goes, he's the star, he's the focal point, he's the center of attention. Maybe that's good, but it's a weird deal because the talent is increased. But I think Kenny Payne is still very much sort of on the hot seat going into 2023, 2024. If you have a season, you're going to be better. But if you don't make the tournament, I think there's at least a possibility Kenny Payne doesn't come back. And I would say this is no disrespect, because I was the guy trumpeting up Kenny Payne should be the guy. I think he's got a lot to show between the lines on the court. This was a team, Louisville was like historically bad last year. Louisville was historically bad last year. Like I'm not a huge Ken Palm guy. I respect him. He works hard. But the analytics, I think, said that this Louisville team was the worst power conference team in the history of the Ken Palm era. I think that's right. If not, it's pretty close. And so you betting your career on that feels like a risk. Now, maybe Mackenzie Mgbako is so good that it does not matter, but that is not what I would advise him to do. Now, what are other realistic options? Well, one, I saw Jack Pilgrim, Kentucky Sports Radio, suggested UNC could be in the mix. That one makes sense to me. Because, listen, I know Hubert Davis had a tough year, but as I've said many times, feels like they're trying to pin that all on Caleb Love. Armando Bacot is back. RJ Davis is back. And it seems like they've been trying to find that big wing scorer forever. Now, they added Jalen Withers, ironically from Louisville, on Tuesday. And they added Paxton Wojcik, a shooter from Brown, a few weeks ago. But they need that big wing, difference maker, get buckets, NBA superstar type talent. And I think North Carolina would make a ton of sense. And I think I'll say this. I saw what happened with Carolina this year. He goes to Carolina. I'm putting him in my top 10. I just am. With RJ Davis, Jalen Withers, Wojcik, as I said, Armando Bacot, some of the freshmen they have coming in. So I think they make sense. Couple others that kind of stand out. One, I'll say this. I think G League Ignite, the professional pathway, they're going to come full speed ahead. Jason Hart, I've said many times, former USC assistant, now runs that program. He's a great recruiter. He's a great talent developer. And if Mackenzie Mgbako doesn't want to go to college, that route makes sense. And then just a few others. I don't think they're very realistic, but they sort of make sense. One, our Torres on St. John's account tweeted out that St. John's has been in contact with Mackenzie Mgbako. Listen, I'll say this, man. If you're going to go to Louisville and it be up in the air, like, is this coach good? Is it going to work? Is it not good? Just go to St. John's. Play in the Garden every night and be the face of that Revival under a Hall of Fame head coach. One thing I'll say, you be a star. The NIL money would be great. And you're actually going to be playing for a Hall of Famer. Like you can debate which team is better and which one's a bigger rebuild. Playing at St. John's, though, you're the king of New York, and you're playing for a Hall of Famer. You will get developed into an NBA prospect. The other one, I've had quite a few UConn fans reach out to me asking, could UConn get into the mix? He was originally recruited by UConn. I'll say this. I think the timeline probably won't work out. But if you're looking for some Andre Jackson insurance, Andre Jackson, the starter, who I think he'll probably test the NBA draft waters. As I record here, it's about midday on Tuesday. He has not announced anything. That would be some pretty good Andre Jackson insurance. But I don't necessarily think that UConn would be the team. 5-man recruiting class. It doesn't feel like they're really pursuing anything in the portal other than a shooting guard to replace Jordan Hawkins. So those are my thoughts on Mackenzie Mgbako, but I'm here to tell you, man, that's a really good player, and I think he's going to be a difference maker wherever he goes. If I had to handicap it, I guess Louisville. This is one I don't feel great on, but fascinating story to watch unfold over the next couple weeks.